Good evening. I hereby call to order the action session of the Board of School Commissioners for Thursday, December 20th. This evening, the ROTC cadets from Arsenal Tech High School will post the colors and lead us in reciting of the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise for the posting of the colors. Color guard, halt, left, face, outward, face, forward, march. Prepare to post. Post. Freeze left. Arm. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Order. Arm. Inward. Face. Forward. March. Color guard. Halt. Outward. Face. Right. Face. Forward. March. Thank you to the ROTC cadets from Arsenal Technical High School. Mr. Mulholland, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Arnold,
Here.
Commissioner Bentley,
Here.
In the back row.
Here. Sorry.
Secretary Gore,
Here.
Doesn't look as good.
Commissioner Hoops,
Here.
Really
Vice President Moore, President O'Connor,
Here.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Mulholland. We'll now adopt the agenda for tonight's meeting. The agenda was reviewed on Tuesday and reflects all necessary modifications or additions. I will note that several items have been added under new business as items 8.06, 8.07, and 8.08 related to collective bargaining, superintendent performance compensation, and an interim superintendent contract. Reviewing the modified agenda, are there requests for changes to the agenda as presented? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
It has been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is adopted. We'll now proceed to section 2 of the agenda. As we all know, each month we invite a student group to perform during our board action session. Tonight's performance comes to us from the Charles W. Fairbanks School 105. The Las Bellas Latin Youth Dance Team, under the umbrella of the Alexander Coleman Dance Company, includes students from the 1st to the 5th grade. They have learned various dances from the cha-cha to the mambo. Recently, Las Bellas performed at Bankers Life Fieldhouse during the Pacers pregame show. We're honored to have them tonight perform the merengue and the reggaeton for us, under the direction of Fallon Coleman. the Las Vegas dance team another round of applause. Moving on to special recognitions. Each month during our board session, we like to take a moment to honor parents and community partners who help make our IPS school community so wonderful. Commissioner Sullivan, would you introduce tonight's honorees?
Yes, thank you. Tonight, we'd like to honor Ernst & Young for their partnership in the College Mentoring for Access and Persistence, or MAP program. They were nominated by Shortridge High School principal Shane O'Day. Accepting on behalf of Ernst & Young is Sarah Mest. Through College MAP, Ernst & Young volunteers help demystify the process of applying to and affording college, encouraging students who might not have considered applying for college to do so. Then, they continue to work with the students to build the skills that will help them complete their post-secondary goals. Skills such as the financial know-how to apply for aid and pay for college, and the persistence skills to help them complete college and succeed in careers. Thank you, Sarah, on behalf of Ernst & Young, for the work you're doing to help our students succeed.
So we're going to go a little off script for a moment. We have three friends who are attending their last board meeting with us this evening. So we're making a quick special recognition because you're going to hear more about our board members as we move through the evening, but we want to present them with something tonight. And so I'm going to do this in order, and I've got to duck. I can barely stand above the podium, so I'm going to disappear for you on that side for just a moment. But we have a plaque for each of the three. Commissioner Doreen Hoops joined us filling a vacancy, something I know a little bit about. You're going to hear more from me about Commissioner Hoops this evening, but has worked admirably and exhaustively on behalf of the students and the families in the district she represents, and has really provided her substantial professional skills in human resources and others as we've worked on things. So, Commissioner Hoops, and I know Dr. Fairby, you want to. Commissioner Kelly Bentley, who is sort of the Encyclopedia Britannica of all things IPS, history-wise and context-wise. I think you're finishing the 16th year. Is that what I heard you say the other night? And I have leaned upon Commissioner Bentley and her knowledge and sort of history of things. Again, you'll hear more about her this evening. But we have Dr. Fairby to present a plaque for her years of service on our board. And Commissioner Marianne Sullivan, I want to point out these are sort of like my grandmother's couches. They're wrapped in plastic. Commissioner Marianne Sullivan, finishing her term as commissioner, served 2 terms as president of the Board of School Commissioners, and has worked again tirelessly on all the education efforts. It's taught me a lot about what we're doing, why we're doing it, and I have enjoyed every moment with you. So, Dr. Fairby, please.
So as Commissioner Sullivan announced on Tuesday evening, she intends to take advantage of every opportunity for commissioner comments. I thought it would be appropriate to take the privilege to make my own comments before commissioners begin to make their comments here from the podium. I also would like to spend some time just remembering the service of those individuals that we just recognized, but also we'll take a moment if I can just share my experiences with all of the commissioners here tonight. As I think about this opportunity, first and foremost, I want you to know that I will be forever grateful for the opportunity to serve Indianapolis Public Schools as superintendent. I will be extremely grateful for not only this experience, but the opportunity that was given to me as an outsider to Indianapolis. As many of you know, prior to the interview, I had never visited Indianapolis in my entire life and was exposed to the greatness here through Indianapolis Public Schools and the IPS School Board. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to serve at a time when Indianapolis Public Schools needed new leadership to move us forward. So I think about where we were at the time. We had several schools that were taken over. There was threat of additional takeover. Our finances were in question. Our teachers had not had a raise in a significant amount of time. And as I think about what we've accomplished over the last 5 years, and when I'm asked about the work, I always remind, I actually had an opportunity to speak with the school board recently, how do you make that happen? And my response has been, you can only move as fast as the support you have from the governance team. And every correspondence that you receive from me has always started with the word team. And I have valued having each and every one of you as teammates. And IPS does not go forward. I cannot lead in the way that I've had the opportunity to do so without your support. And as I shared with the group I met with recently, it's a board grappling with some tough decisions. And I reminded them the superintendent cannot make bold and courageous moves without a supportive governance team. And so for that, again, I'm grateful to have this opportunity. For the commissioners who will be moving on to other opportunities, I want to start with you, and I have some flowers for each of one of you. And I want to start with Commissioner Sullivan. As I think about our time together, your time as president for 2 terms, I will always relish in our conversations as thought partners. When you are an innovator like myself, you feed off of other innovative minds, and your big ideas have often been the big ideas that have moved Indianapolis Public Schools into new ways of thinking and new ways of doing work. And much of what we have accomplished has come through many of our conversations around how we can do things differently and do things better. So again, grateful to you, and I thank you for this experience. I'm actually going to bring it to you.
Don't trip.
Commissioner Bentley, my mother is probably watching the stream of this video right now, and she often reminds me that she is my biggest critic, and she is also my biggest fan. And as I think about those words, and I think about who serves in that capacity here in Indianapolis, Kelly Bentley is at the top of the list. Kelly is not shy about giving me constructive feedback or when she believes that we can do things better. But lo and behold, if anyone were to attack Louis Farabee, Kelly Bentley will be there to defend my leadership. And I greatly appreciated that. Whether it's the work that you do on social media, which you're very active, but we have been in rooms together, and she said, you know, I don't like the way he or she talked to you, or that's not true, we need to correct that. And I have greatly appreciated your will to stand in the gap for me in very difficult times in your service to Indianapolis Public Schools. And again, I thank you. Commissioner Hoops, Commissioner O'Connor was correct. When people are appointed to the board, they can come in with two perspectives. One of, I have all the answers, or one of listening and learning. And I have greatly appreciated your willingness to listen. And I have also waited by the phone. I know that I would get the call from you, and you would always say to me, I want to learn more about this. Do you mind spending an hour with me on this day or that day? And I would always be excited about having that opportunity to sit down with you and share the great work that's happening in the district. And the way you absorb that and would come back to me with thoughtful feedback was just amazing. And you're very kind-hearted, a phenomenal person, and this board, this district is a better organization for students with disabilities because of your advocacy for our students with special needs. And for that, I say thank you. My day one. Diane Arnold. I love saying that because not many superintendents have had the experience of having a number of elections and having the ability to work with a person that has been here since the beginning. And as I think about our time together, I can envision you here on this same platform announcing my selection in the summer of 2013. And what I've appreciated since then, there's these words that you always say that give me great strength and confidence. Almost every time there's a decision to be made, whether it's a difficult decision or not, you have always said to me and to others publicly, I trust your judgment. You always say to me, Lewis, since you've been here, you have always made decisions in the best interest of our children. And you said that I've always appreciated that. And because of that reason, whatever you decide, I trust your judgment. And I greatly appreciate your trust in me to serve our students and families. And I greatly appreciate your support since our beginning in the summer of 2013. Diane Arnold, thank you for being a partner. Thank you for being a teammate. Thank you for being my Colts and Pacers partnership and fan. And I wish you the best in enjoying your retirement. Thank you. Commissioner O'Connor.
Uh-oh.
You know, I could say to the entire group, not only have I gained teammates, I've gained friends, but specifically with you, sir, in your many hats that you've worn. And I would often hear you talk about how you can't keep a job, and you've served in many capacities. I've learned that through those experiences, you have a wealth of knowledge. And you, sir, have been a tremendous mentor for me. And I want to continue to rely on your mentorship. And the one thing that you have shared with me that I use often in the way I think about our work is you said, Lewis, relationships sustain and thrive on compromises. I thought about it the first time you said it. And then you said it again, and I began to think about it, and I have found that to be really true. And it's something that I will take with me in my work, but also it is something that's really helpful personally as well. And I want to, again, thank you for your mentorship and supporting me not only in my capacity as superintendent, but in my general leadership. Thank you, sir. Commissioner Gore, you are my eyes and my ears. I think we have the most telephone time, and you always reach out to me and you say, let me tell you what I'm hearing. And I want to hear your side first before I draw any conclusions about what I'm hearing. And I found that to be really helpful to have someone who can keep me grounded in what's happening across the district, but also give me perspective on your experiences here in Indianapolis and Indianapolis Public Schools. Also very kind and warm-hearted, and even in the most difficult conversations we have, you always ask about me personally and my family as well, and I greatly appreciate that, and I've appreciated your support on your time on the board. I thank you. For those of you that didn't receive flowers, you are receiving the best gifts that I can give you in your new leader and the interim superintendent and Ms. Johnson. Again, I thank you for the opportunity to serve Indianapolis Public Schools.
Thank you, Dr. Farabee. As shocking as it seems, we're now moving to opening comments. Does any commissioner wish to offer opening comments? Commissioner Arnold.
And this is actually not about Dr. Farabee or other board members. I'll save those for later. But last night I had the opportunity to attend holiday open house at Wendell Phillips, and it was amazing. There were over 1,000 people there. They had a percussion drum group, a dance group, parents, community partners. I heard stories of students going, 7th grade students who were tested at kindergarten level, now being at 5th and 6th grade level with a half of a semester. So, for those that don't appreciate or don't approve of the innovation and some of the things that we've done to turn our schools around, I hope you take the opportunity to visit schools like Wendell Phillips and see what a difference the energy and the performance and the participation of parents.
Commissioner Sullivan. Third, you're on 3.
Yeah.
I know, this is 3, yeah. So before I exit stage right, I would like to give special thanks to the incredible central office staff who bust their rears to do things that haven't been done before or have been done but just not as well. If an organization does good work, in this case, work that changes the trajectory of children's lives, it will attract good people, and we have attracted so many good people. I will not even attempt to name all the names of the mission-driven, talented individuals who have signed on to Team IPS. You know who you are. And please know your sacrifice, dedication, and beautiful spirits are recognized and much admired. But tonight, I want to elevate one very special person, Zach Mulholland, the board administrator, whom I had the privilege of working with closely during my 2 years as board president, and whom I greatly admired prior to my work with IPS and will continue to follow in his future endeavors. Zach's integrity, his selflessness, kindness, good judgment, and extreme smarts allow the board to function at the highest level. It takes a very special individual to navigate the egos and diverse personalities of an elected board. Zach does it with grace and good cheer. I hope he will continue to share his gifts with Team IPS for many more years. It has been a pleasure working with you, Zach.
Any other opening comments?
I did.
Commissioner Bentley.
I have 2 opportunities, I think. Not yet. I'm going to use my time, though, to talk about a very special person who, it's going to be difficult for me to get through this, but who passed away earlier this week. Doris Durr Young touched the lives of thousands of young men and women during her long career as an English literature and humanities teacher at Broad Ripple High School. I was lucky enough to be taught by her, as my daughter was. Mrs. Young was a big reason why I ran for the IPS school board back in 1998. She represents everything good in IPS and in public education, and was the teacher I compared every other teacher to. She taught me to love learning, to be curious, and to just want to know things. She loved literature, loved writing, loved teaching, loved the students. She taught future doctors, lawyers, engineers, artists, writers, and teachers. And based on the social media posts I've seen, she is mourned by all whose lives she touched. Mrs. Young taught at Broad Ripple for 44 years with a focus on English literature and humanities. She helped form the Broad Ripple Humanities Magnet, founded and sponsored the Humanities Advisory Council, which was made up of students. She also served as the producer, sponsor, mentor of the Broad Ripple Ripples Act, which has had a long history of one-act plays written, directed, and performed by students at Broad Ripple. She received numerous awards and accolades during her career. She was the Outstanding Young Educator in 1981, and when she retired in 2015, she was awarded the Hubbard Life-Changing Teacher Award. We have a video to share from the celebration, and I think that, for me, hearing her voice, it perfectly encapsulates what a wonderful person she was and how much she's going to be missed in Indianapolis. Indianapolis and IPS and Broad Ripple were better places because she lived here and she worked here and she cared about people. So, Doris, take it away.
I think you have to love your subject matter enough to want to.
Do you want us to proceed, take public comment, figure out the technical difficulties, and come back, Commissioner Bentley?
Sure.
Or persist now? We can do either.
I do want to say that she didn't like people, she didn't like a lot of people making nice comments about her, so I'm sure that she has something.
That may be her.
She's back. Yes, that'd be fine. Sure.
So we're going to move.
What we'll do, we'll just play on the small screens. We won't worry about dropping the big screen.
Okay.
But you guys can see the monitors
Yes.
there, and everyone else gathered can see the monitors here. So we'll just do that.
Just turn this sound up.
I think you have to love your subject matter enough to want to share what you know, but of course, most of all, you have to love the kids. If you don't, if you walk in that classroom and you're not excited just to see them, then you probably should be doing something else. All of us work better when we know that our work is appreciated. All of us work better when we know that somebody gives a darn that we had a bad night or that we didn't get enough sleep. And I don't know why the same shouldn't be true with teachers and students. It matters. They challenge me. Being in the humanities, I've had to teach myself an awful lot of things, and that's been so fun.
I really love her, and I actually carry her picture in my phone case everywhere, and every time I get upset, I always look at the picture, and it makes me happy to see that beautiful smile.
It's really surprising how many kids are interested in learning something just because they don't know it. No matter what culture we have, we all have the same basic fears and desires, and that's important to know. And it's wonderful to have learned that we really are all alike.
I feel like she cares a lot more. All my teachers care, but she always seems to take it to the next level. Maybe she know how much people care about her and how important she is to everybody. And I'd really like her to know that.
She's there for her students, and she cares a lot about them.
I just want to tell her that she's probably one of the best teachers I had. even though she's probably the hardest teacher I've ever had.
I'm pretty sure if she won this award, it would mean a lot to her. She deserves it.
I do listen to them. I do get involved in their lives if they want me to. They think I'm funny. So why are you telling me this? I really have wonderful colleagues. The people at Broad Ripple are fabulous. So I miss the kids, I miss the intellectual stimulation, and I probably miss the routine. The whole experience has been a lifelong trip of learning for me about people, about academic things, and it's been wonderful.
Any other commissioner comments? Yes. Okay. We'll now move to the public comment section. We'll receive public comment from individuals who signed up to speak to the board this evening. I'll remind our speakers that you're allowed 3 minutes to offer comments to the board. A timer will start when you begin, and I ask that you briefly conclude your remarks when you hear the timer go off. Comments should be directed to the board collectively, should not be abusive or disruptive, and should not address a topic that might be of a confidential nature or the compromising impartiality of the board. I'll also remind our speakers that while the board is happy to receive your comments, we will not respond or answer questions at this time. If you signed up to speak on a particular topic on tonight's agenda, you'll be called to speak when that item is before the board. Please come to the podium and begin your comments when your name is called. Mr. Gramelsbacher.
Charlie Schlegel is first this evening.
Good evening, commissioners. Like Miss Bentley, I too had the privilege of being a student in Miss Young's class, and I too want to memorialize the wonderful work she did. This is the kind of sad news that makes one pause for a second or two before moving on to one's holiday shopping or a Facebook post. Yet for thousands of Broad Ripple graduates across the country, Miss Young's passing garners far greater notice. Now, some might quibble with Miss Young's occasional sarcasm or still wonder why they got a B on a paper when their buddy, from whom they copied in the first place, got an A. Yet all would agree she was an extraordinary educator and a huge part of why Broad Ripple High School is still an important part of our city's educational landscape. Now, holding the attention of adolescents is no easy task in any decade. Yet in each of her 4 decades in the classroom, Miss Young proved a master at it. In Miss Young's class, Machiavelli was the father of today's partisan politics. Shakespeare was the original author of this season's sitcoms. And Leonardo da Vinci would have built a better iPhone. Day in, day out, Miss Young's history, culture, she made history, culture, and even grammar rules exciting enough to earn the eyes of a class of high school juniors and seniors. As a student in Miss Young's class 3 decades ago, I can still recall the way she'd sit at the front of the class and manage discussions. She'd scan the room, familiar with the life circumstances and current disposition of every kid in the class. She'd ask smart, probing questions, challenge the audacious, untested opinions of the most overconfident among us, me, and somehow she'd make everyone better educated along the way. In short, Miss Young could outsmart, outsnark, and outlast even the most combative class, and still leave us all feeling loved, valued, and capable of great things, as long as we are ready to work for it. Today, I'm an educator, due in part to Miss Young's example. As a teacher, I appreciate more than ever her ability to tell a great story and make even a 400-year-old poet sound spicy and relevant. As a school leader, I treasure teachers like Miss Young, who find their calling in the classroom and stick with it. Finally, as a parent of a couple adolescents, I try all the time to emulate the way she challenged us to be our best self, even on days when as teenagers, we'd just rather stay in bed. Thank you, Miss Young, for being an extraordinary teacher to my sister me, and thousands of Rippolitos for whom you meant so much. Thank you.
Next speaker is Jennifer Collins, followed by Becky Escanero, please. If I don't see movement, I'll just keep going. Jennifer Collins is not here.
Hi, my name is Henry Walton. I have 2 children at Super School 19 this year. I wrote everything out just so I don't forget anything. My son Cody, he's in the 6th grade, and Sarah, my daughter, she's in the 3rd grade. We've been there ever since the kids have been in kindergarten. So I have a real feel for the way the school was before it was Innovation School and the way it is now. My daughter can be quite a handful, quite a lot of times, and what's going on this year with school, I feel there's a real sense of community. I feel like the communication from the teachers, all of the teachers, is just spectacular. It's almost unheard of. They don't just reach out for the bad stuff, but also for the good. The best thing about all this is whenever our kids know that our teachers are communicating, it really, really helps us. If my daughter knows it's going to come up at dinner, she doesn't do it. And I think this school has changed for the better. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Becky. I have 2 children that go to IPS School 19. My daughter has been going there since 1st grade. And this year, I can't speak on the behalf of all the teachers, but her one specific teacher, Mr. Grimm, has an excellent communication skills. He's always keeping in touch with her grades. And he always just texts me, calls me, and lets me know how she's doing. And I really appreciate that. Also, I'm going to speak on a behalf of another parent that could not make it today. So I'm going to read what she wrote. I have 3 children who attend Super School. They were attending School 39, but my children were having some challenges. My son Christian has ADHD and needed some more structure. The staff at School 39 suggested School 19 because of the active learning at the school. This school has made a difference because he has a hard time sitting still and focusing in class. Since the beginning of the year, the school has kept him active and helped him learn to control his actions. Isabella didn't have issues in school, but Elena has struggled a little with her grades. At the beginning of this school year, I found out she was a little behind, but the staff at the school have helped her get to her grade level in math and reading. There is a lot of support at the school, and that is very important to me. I work Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., Saturday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Sunday, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. I get calls all the time from all of their teachers. I don't have to worry about my child falling through the cracks. Teachers text anytime, including weekends, which helps since I have a crazy schedule. There is tutoring support for Elena. Isabella is participating in after-school activities and plans to try out for soccer. The most obvious difference I've noticed in Christian's grades. He tells me that the work is different and he enjoys it more. It's more interesting, more interactive. He feels like his teachers are happier than before. This is from Brandy Brock. Thank you.
Thank you. Luke Grimm next, please. Followed by Jocelyn Allen.
Good afternoon, board members. My personality is some way, I just retired last summer from 20 years in the active duty, so the drill sergeant, the first sergeant, senior NCO, I come across a little abrasive. I'm a teacher at School 19. Those are parents of students in my 6th grade. Hiring on this summer at the Innovation School, being able to get a job offer on the spot, accepted on the spot, move in directly. The principal and the leadership is phenomenal because we've removed a lot of barriers that a lot of leaders have. I can understand what it's like to have middle management over and over and over again. The amount of decisions that the staff has and the leadership has based on curriculum, based on funds that they've been walking me through for my own admin license through IUPUI, they have so much autonomy on how they interact with the parents, with the teachers, a term called mission command. The teachers need to be able to handle situations on the ground instead of waiting for the principal to dictate every single thing that happens. And the culture at this innovation school is only what I saw in the military. The teachers have the power to make decisions, and they know they're going to have the backing of the principal. This doesn't happen in a lot of other places. I think you have the right people in place, but I'm not here for them. I'm here for the school. Students that live close by, I see them get on buses and get off buses going elsewhere, and I wish I could go recruit them. I have 6 daughters. I'm trying to enroll 4 of them this coming spring. I can't imagine anywhere else. When we have 75% of our seats are exercise balls, I have an elliptical, I have pedaling bikes. The students can get up and move. They can go anywhere they need to go in class, and they're still learning how to reflect an x-coordinate across the y-axis. The amount of autonomy the teachers have is incredible. Whatever happened with School 19 that you guys set that up, I pray you guys let that continue. It is working. It will continue to work. And I believe you could find those results in other schools as well. Thank you.
Jocelyn Allen, please, followed by Shawanda Tyson.
Good evening, Dr. Farabee and Board of Commissioners. My name is Jocelyn Allen. I'm a proud IPS alumni and parent of an IPS child. I am here to speak in support of the teachers' pay raise. I was actively involved in the efforts to pass the IPS referendum through Stand for Children, Indiana. Over the summer and early fall, I knocked on more than 5,000 doors and walked hundreds of miles to make sure the referendum was passed so that teachers can receive this much-deserved raise. My kids and all children deserve a great teacher in every classroom. I want those teachers to stick around. Being out there supporting the teachers and letting them know that they are supported by the community, and that is important to me. From my own past, I remember a 6th grade teacher at School 87. I had Mr. Doyle. Everybody remembers him. In 5th grade, everyone wanted to be in Mr. Doyle's class because the other class just wasn't popping like that. Well, anytime you succeeded or showed any kind of achievement in his class, he gave you a Snicker bar. He called it brain food. And we strived for those Snicker bars. Anyone in his class who was honored to be there. This past summer, I attended my 20-year reunion. And all the teachers that had Mr. Doyle have went on to do great things in our community. Good teachers can change a community and build leaders. I want teachers like Mr. Doyle for my 13-year-old Jalen. I want to maintain good teachers like Mr. Doyle for my baby Jackson, who's 2. And I wish there could have been more teachers like Mr. Doyle for my oldest son, who's 20, John. Luckily, my daughter Jalen has had the opportunity to attend Ignite Achievement Academy Elder Diggs at IPS 42. The whole environment was a breath of fresh air, and my daughter loved going to that school. I believe it is the teachers that made her so excited to go to that school. So please do all that you can to retain these excellent educators by providing them with meaningful raises. Thank you.
Thank you. Shawanda Tyson, if present, please, followed by Nathan Harris.
Good evening, Dr. Farabee and members of the committee. My name is Shawanda Tyson, and I am the mother of 2 beautiful men, young men, and the aunt of many. My son Morel attends Ignite Achievement Academy at IPS 42, and I'm here to speak in favor of the teacher pay raises in IPS. Having strong teachers who are supported and paid what they deserve has been a focus of mine over the last few years because it's important for my kids, nieces, and nephews. My son Morel is autistic, so familiar faces matter to him. When there are substitute teachers in the classroom and there is no full-time teachers in his class, his academics are disturbed because they have to get used to him, know what he likes, what are his triggers. We need to make sure that the teachers are paid as the professionals they are, and that all children can learn from the same teacher in the entire academic year if possible. No one should have an academic year of nothing but substitute teachers because teachers are leaving the profession, as we know. Another experience, my niece had 7 teachers in one school year, and she showed no academic gain in her education that school year. 7 teachers in one school year. No one is hurting more than those babies when they have been failed on this level. They wanted to hold her back because she couldn't pass I Read 3. But after having a rotating door of educators in and out of her class that year, she was told she failed that year, and she felt like a failure deep inside. What the school should have said is that we failed her as well by not giving her what every student deserves, which is an amazing, dedicated teacher. Teachers need support inside and outside of the class. If they don't feel supported and underpaid, the revolving door teachers will only continue. And kids just like my son and nieces will suffer. They won't fail, the schools will fail them. Teachers deserve a respectful salary, and I am in support of this raise, which is a good step, first step towards showing them the respect they deserve. Lastly, as a parent member of Stand for Children, I am proud of the work parents put in to support the IPS referendum that allowed these pay increases to happen. We all need to come together as a community to continue to fight for elevating the teacher profession because it matters for our babies. Thank you.
After Nathan Harris, Carrie Harris, please.
Thank you today for this another opportunity to come before you, and I'm quite delighted. So what I'm focusing on today is our low-income students and their needs. And so from my observations over the years, despite all of the different initiatives, low-income students and students of color still are failing, which because of the length of time of this failure, it has a way of discouraging even teachers and staff members who may even have the give up attitude is the phrase I use. And so you have pursued many different initiatives lately, but again, from my observations, none have been specifically dedicated to your low-income at-risk students. So let's consider today how you can become more deliberate about doing this. And so first of all, let's consider that we are going to talk about practicing being more equity-minded. And so I asked the question, why do low-income and students of color or minority students fail in school? Institutions and schools are not generally prepared to provide an environment of success for them. Another question, what does equity mean? How does it differ from equality? Equity means providing a level playing field for all of its students to succeed. Equality just means giving everybody the same thing. Another question, what does it mean to be equity-minded? Having an attitude of actively committing to initiatives that provide resources to help provide a level playing field. And so some of the things that you need to consider during this, and if I attend board meetings, I may focus on them, is being more district or institutionally focused, which means remediating the institution's actions rather than students' actions alone. Critically race conscious, paying attention to whether students from historically underrepresented groups are participating and feel welcome and succeed. And being systemically aware, recognizing and counteract institution and structural racism. And you should do this based on evidence and data.
Thank you. After Carrie Harris, we have Michelle Lorbeski, please.
Good evening, Dr. Fairby and commissioners. It's wonderful to be here this last meeting of the year and to also say goodbye to Dr. Fairby, who has become a friend of my husband and I. And for those who don't know, I am a product of the IPS school system from kindergarten through 12th grade. And I can tell you every teacher from kindergarten through 8th grade. And I can tell you their names. I can tell you what school I was at. And so we had great teachers. I only forget my second grade teacher's name. I remember her face, but I don't remember her name. And so when we think about that, IPS has always been a great school system. But now we're looking to do new things with the system. And what I'm asking and saying to the public and to those that will still be on the board, we need to stop and see where we are so that our children can stand. I just celebrated 40 years from high school this year. Can stand and say, I remember my teachers from kindergarten through 8th grade because they were great teachers. And so our communities will be able to stand and say we're educating our young people. We've done enough to the IPS system at this point. I'm hoping that we'll wait and see what those things that have been done, how they're going to pan out, what's going to be the success of the students who are here, how are we going to bring students back and not continually add to and not know what's happening. I think that we've done enough to our high schools. We don't need any more high schools. We've done enough. We need to see what's going to happen with the high schools we currently have, see how those students are going to succeed. Again, thank all of you for serving. This is not an easy job. I've sat on a board before, not one like this one though, but I've sat on a board before, and it's not an easy job. Thank those of you who are leaving. Thank those of you who are coming, and the best of luck to you, Dr. Fairby, in Washington, D.C.
Somebody's clapping for you, you might know.
See if I can get through this without coughing. I'm coming down with a cold, trying to get over it. Thank you, Superintendent Farabee, Commissioners. In this last meeting of 2018, I want to express my excitement for the opportunities that this board will have in 2019 to do its part in ensuring that my daughter and every other IPS student receives the solid educational foundation that they need and deserve. In a few short weeks, the board will install 3 new commissioners and new leadership when it elects its 2019 president, vice president, and secretary. In 2019, this board will have the important responsibility of selecting our new superintendent. This board will also be responsible for overseeing the IPS budget, including millions of dollars that IPS will receive through the referenda that we've already heard about this evening that this community, including myself, voted to give to IPS. Our increased taxes are an investment in our children's future that I will make gladly, and I don't think I'm alone in my intention to monitor my investment. Before I started speaking and the other public commenters, Commissioner O'Connor reminded us of this board's rules about public comment, which I will follow. I'd like to remind the board of one of its own rules that I hope the board will follow in 2019. Under this board's bylaws, number 155, if you'd like to take a look at the rule yourself, this board's president is required to form certain committees within 3 weeks after being elected. One of those committees is the Student, Parent, and Community Engagement Committee. I don't remember hearing anything about that committee in 2018, and my requests to members of this board regarding that committee have been unanswered. All of the 3 new commissioners joining this board in a few weeks promised the IPS community during their campaigns that they would improve upon this board's prior efforts to engage the IPS community. What better opportunity is there to deliver on that promise than to engage the IPS community in 2019 by following its own rules, forming the Student Parent Community Engagement Committee, and making sure that the committee does a meaningful job of including students, parents, community partners in the conversation about the future of IPS. Commissioners O'Connor, Moore, who's not with us tonight, Gore, and Arnold will remain on this board in 2019, and I hope that you share in your new colleagues' desire to engage the IPS community. I also hope that you agree that the IPS community, having agreed to your request to raise our taxes to provide you with an additional $272 million in funding, deserve to be engaged in the future of IPS in a meaningful way. And finally, I have a few seconds left. I just wanted to say credit should be given where it's due. I was here a few months ago. I had a very negative report about transportation. I spoke to your director of transportation. We've had quite a few different bus drivers on my daughter's bus, but that bus is on time now. So thank you very much for that.
President O'Connor, that concludes public comment for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Gramelsbacher, and thank you to all our speakers. One point of privilege from the chair. I have seen a commissioner-elect in the audience. Would Evan Hawkins please stand and be recognized? Thank you for joining us this evening. As noted by one of our speakers, in a few weeks, this will all be yours. Moving on to the consent agenda, the items included on the consent agenda were reviewed at our agenda review session on Tuesday and reflect all necessary modifications. Are there any questions or requests to remove an item from the consent agenda? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Consent agenda passes. Having no board reports, I'll now turn the agenda over to Dr. Farabee for superintendent reports.
Good evening again, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to celebrate your leadership. Looking forward to providing superintendent reports this evening. The first report is our monthly school spotlight. It's our opportunity to showcase the work that is happening in our schools across the district and also learn more about individual school strategy and hear from school leadership of some of their accomplishments, challenges, and also strategy. With that, we'll turn the podium and floor over to John Edge, who's the principal at Arlington Middle School. Tonight, he will provide an overview of the happenings and strategy at Arlington Middle School. And welcome, sir, and we're looking to learn more about the Golden Knights.
Good evening, sir. My name is John Edge. I'm the principal at Arlington Middle School. Okay, tonight we're going to look at who we are, fostering a strong learning environment, assessment data, and teacher development and investment. The mission of Arlington Middle School is to create a learning experience that impacts the social, emotional, and academic development of our students through a school-wide culture of empowering. Arlington Middle School was a grade high school from 1961 to the spring of 2018. In the fall of 2018, Arlington reopened its new Eastside Community Middle School, continuing the proud tradition started by Arlington High School. Arlington Middle School offers a variety of athletics and extracurricular activities, and we support our community through our monthly school Gleaners Food Bank. Enrollment data. If you look at our Arlington Middle School's enrollment data, we projected at 260 students on August 1st. By 8 a.m. on September the 14th, we're at 387, and as of December the 3rd, we're currently at 456 and growing. Okay. We're an Eastside Boundary School that uses a lockstep approach to school culture. Our students move in teams, and we use common classroom and building procedures, which helps create stable routines for our students. We use standard-based instruction. All staff plan with our instructional coach to develop standard-based instruction 2 days a week during teachers' preps. Arlington Middle School uses PBIS, second step social, emotional, and learning curriculum and trauma-informed school practice to address social and emotional needs of all of our students and to help reinforce positive behaviors. Arlington Middle School also uses PBIS online data tracker to track our positive behaviors and award points for those that can be redeemed on Friday in our night store. Also, we have created an AB block in response to our first quarter data to create 2 English and math classes for each semester. We've also created a successor resource class where we use Achieve 3000 for reading remediation and Ed Minimum to support our math classes. Our teachers common plan twice a week with our one for planning with our common core content areas and one for data planning. We also have created pods to help our new teachers. And we also use the Achievement Network, formative assessment and summative assessments to track our students' growth. If you look at the data provided, this is our Achievement Network ELA Assessment 1. If you notice, our informative text is the area of growth. What we've done to remedy the solution is we've started using race strategies in all of our classes to answer our free response questions. We also use our anchor charts for visuals in our classrooms, and we use academic vocabulary and constant specific vocabulary to help our instruction. We've also, to help our teacher development investment, we've created weekly meetings for our pod leader teachers. They meet with administration on Mondays and the instructional coach to help them with instructional practices. And then our teachers will turn around on Thursday afternoons with administration, help our new teachers on our PBIS strategies and our Teach Like a Champion strategies and any classroom needs that we have. Also, all staff meet with our instructional coach weekly on Mondays for planning PLCs, on Wednesday for data analysis, and then our instructional coach has every teacher on a 2-week cycle for coaching. Okay. On behalf of Arlington Middle School, our families and community, I would like to thank Superintendent Farabee and the Board of Commissioners for the opportunity to talk about our great work going on at Arlington Middle School. I would also like to thank the secondary learning community for our recent Cause for the Applause Award. Dr. Farabee, I would also like to reach out to you and thank you very much for what you've done for Arlington and myself. I know it's your last school board meeting, sir. I do appreciate it very much.
Thank you, sir.
Do you have any questions?
Commissioner Bentley?
Hi. Thank you for your presentation. This was a big transition year. And, can you talk a little bit about, some of the challenges, the successes, in your, if you were going to rate it 1 to 10, just because it's a transition year, how do you think it's going so far?
Well, with any new undertaking, there's always growing pains, right? So that's why we've done some things we've done. After the first quarter, we've seen some deficiencies. We can put some changes in. I put the AB block in. We put our teacher mentoring in. ANET through our TZ community, we're using that to help track our students' data and where we're at. Those are some of the things we've done. I mean, some challenges we have.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Can you explain the lockstep approach?
Okay,
Just
so
not
our
familiar with
lockstep, I'm sorry. Our lockstep approach is our students we pair them up in their teams and they move their class to class all day. So we have 2 pods in each grade, so we're AB blocks. You would go to a set of teachers on one day and they move around to those teachers, and the next day you go to the next set of teachers. We flip the kids back. So that's how we double up on our English and math classes.
I'm sorry, that was my question.
That was your question. Commissioner Hoops?
Term that I didn't understand.
And Ms. Bentley, for someone who taught your son and taught with Ms. Doris Young, I agree very much.
Did you? I don't remember that.
I was the baseball coach. Your son played for me.
Oh my God. Okay. Good to see you.
I'd like to know a little bit about your background. Tell me about your.
So I'm ex-military. I got out of the military. I'm not traditional. And started teaching. I was 32. I taught at Broad Ripple. I taught at Howe, Coleman Middle School. Coached in this district. Curriculum writer in this district. And then assistant principal at John Marshall, Broad Ripple, and now the principal at Arlington. I'm an IPS guy through and through, a long time. Any other questions?
I have one question, just sort of on were you surprised at the growth, not sort of from projected to ADM, but post ADM, were you surprised at the growth you've experienced from that forward, and what would you attribute that to?
Okay, so I was assistant principal at John Marshall for 3 years, right, and this is kind of standard pattern. Through movement, we have a very mobile community, so it's kind of standard practice. It always will grow by, 30, 40, 50% by the end of the year. So, I mean, that's how we've already projected these, and we've been working on those through our SBA budgeting. We've been kind of creative and using that to help keep our class sizes small.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your committed leadership in the district.
Thank you, sir, and you'll be greatly missed.
Thank you. The next superintendent report is an update on our special education strategy. We have here tonight Brent Freeman, who is the special education officer. He'll provide an overview of data for special education services and initiatives that are underway. Welcome, Brent.
Thank you. And thank you for letting me share an update on such a special night. And so I appreciate it. As Dr. Verby said, an update on some initiatives from special ed. And much of this is in response to some questions from commissioners and to clarify how things work in special ed. And so I'll jump right in. There are a couple questions about the evaluation process for determining if a student is eligible for special ed. There are really two paths for this, and this is the same across the state of Indiana. A parent can request or the school can request testing. Once that happens, it goes to an interdisciplinary team. They review the request and they decide if it's appropriate or not, and then they'll either begin an evaluation or they will refuse an evaluation. If they begin an evaluation, they will get consent from the parent, and once they get consent from the parent, they have 50 educational days to conduct that evaluation. And so that involves assessments, that involves observation, that involves data collection, and then they write a report, and it's an interdisciplinary team that does that, and then they hold a case conference committee. That committee is a team of people that includes the parent and then decides if the student is eligible for special education services. And so that's how the evaluation process goes for special ed in a nutshell. Also talking a little bit about equity and the benefits of an equity-based inclusive education. There are a number of them, both academically and behaviorally. One that I'll highlight is increasing graduation rates. And so this basically concept is of the least restrictive environment. So the closer students with disabilities are to their typically abled peers, the better they tend to perform in a number of areas. And so we've seen rising graduation rates in IPS. We've seen rising graduation rates with students with disabilities as well. And it's a benefit of inclusive practices, which is an emphasis of our department. We also see benefits behaviorally for students with disabilities when included, and they pick up on positive peer modeling. And so if a student has, for instance, a behavior disorder and is around typical peers, they tend to behave better and learn positive behaviors and have those behaviors reinforced. So the reason I'm giving a couple of those frameworks is that we are emphasizing inclusive practices in our district, and when we talk about what programs and supports are available for kids, we always want to think about the least restrictive environment first. And so a couple of frameworks that IPS is embarking on to support students with disabilities are listed here. Multi-tiered systems of support. We love acronyms in special ed. So MTSS, which is a general ed initiative that has its roots in special ed and is about tiering supports, academic, behavioral, social, emotional, for all kids. And then Universal Design for Learning, which is also rooted in special ed but becomes a general education for all students initiative, and it's rooted in the learning sciences. And there is in the appendices more information about those frameworks. And then in terms of programs available in our continuum of supports, we have a number of opportunities, a variety of settings for students with disabilities, starting from the vast majority of students are in their school with natural supports with an inclusion special education teacher supporting. With students with behavior or mental health needs, there are additional wraparound supports available. We have intensive behavior supports. It's been called self-contained ED in IPS for a number of years. Roots, which is our therapeutic program, very intense services available to students with intense needs. With learning and intellectual disabilities, we also have a continuum, starting from typical school and ranging to our life skills for students with significant or moderate disabilities. And then we have an autism continuum of services available, again, from inclusion in the general ed setting all the way to intensive autism supports, which is a separate setting for students with disabilities, and what we're calling REACH, which is an ABA-like, which is called ABA is Applied Behavior Analysis, and it's an ABA-like setting for students with intense behavior needs. Preschool, we also have a continuum of services, and I'll note we have a very unique program available at Stephen Foster for students that are auditory oral learners that are deaf and hard of hearing, and so they can learn through a cochlear implant how to hear and speak and overcome their hearing deficits. And then a variety of other programs available across the district. This is not an exhaustive list because that would be a little ridiculous and long, but I did want to give you just an overview of a number of the services and programs that are available in our special ed department. And also, a question was asked about special education at innovation schools. How does that work? And so all supports from our district are available in LEA, special education, in IPS LEA schools, so the 5385 local education agency, our official legal district. Non-LEA schools provide their own continuum of special education services. We do collaborate with 6 innovation schools that have a split LEA setup, and we are exploring a shared services model with them. And in order to just give a highlight of what inclusive practices look like, I did ask Principal Sarah Zach from Eleanor Skillen, which is a neighborhood school on the near south side, to come and talk about both the life skills setting and intensive behavior support setting at her school and a recent success story.
Thank you so much for having me. My name is Sarah Zach, and I'm the proud principal at Eleanor Skillen. And I do have to explain my attire today. It was ugly sweater day, ugly holiday sweater day, and this is just a glimpse in the life of an elementary principal. At Eleanor Skillen, we are proud to host 2 intensive behavior support classrooms within our building at the primary and intermediate level. We also have life skills classes as well. But I'm going to speak today about the intensive behavior support classrooms. Each of these classrooms are staffed with a special education teacher, instructional assistants. We also have a behavioral specialist on site that helps our students with social emotional skills and building strategies to help them when they become angry or frustrated. We also have housed in our building mental health services, and those providers work right alongside our students and feed into the classroom to help our students. Additionally, we have an amazing general education teaching staff that understand how important it is to include all students. So my students are your students, and your students are my students, and we all take ownership of every student that walks into the doors of Eleanor Skillen. With these collaborative wraparound services, we are able to support individualized help for all of our students. I'd like to share with you a success story of one of our students in the intensive behavior support classrooms. This student started at Eleanor Skillen in the fall of 2017. She received a very restrictive setting. She only attended school 1 hour a day with the help of a one-on-one assistant. Soon, that 1 hour became half days. Soon, that half day became full days. Full days turned into 3 days a week, and 3 days a week turned into 5 days a week. Soon, that student was able to get into the general education classroom with the support of a one-on-one assistant. And I'm really proud to say that the beginning of this fall, 2018, this particular student is now in the general education classrooms at all times. This is something that we're really proud of. We know how important it is to push our students and give them the support that they need to be successful. Our goal is that our students in our intensive behavior support programs not only become integrated in our school as productive members, but also integrated in society as productive members as well. Thank you so much for the opportunity to highlight our school and our success, and I welcome you to visit Eleanor Skillen at any time.
Take any questions at this time?
Commissioner Arnold.
I'd like to go back to the referral.
Yeah.
Because that's what I get questions that, my child was denied special services. So can you talk to me a little bit about the interdisciplinary team and who makes that up and how those decisions are made? And I noticed when it's a school referral, they can refer for supports, but I don't see that under if the parent referred them for an evaluation. So do they not, if maybe they have issues,
Yep.
but it's not warranted that they get special ed services, are they also eligible for potential support services? So just talk to me a little bit about.
It's a good question. So yes, they are eligible for other support services if they are not evaluated for special education. And so that can include a 504 plan, which is slightly different than an IEP. It can include an MTSS plan, and so the multi-tiered system of supports that I referenced. And those are structured interventions. Basically, if a student, if it may not be clear that the student is eligible for special education, they could have interventions under the old RTI model. It's now blended into MTSS. And so it could be for 20 to 30 instructional days of an intervention or 2 implemented to see if a student shows growth. And so that is an option under either referral process. And your first question, I think, was about who sits on that I-team and makes those decisions. It's always there's a school administrator, so either principal or assistant principal, a school psychologist who is typically the evaluator in special education assessments, and they're trained in Article 7, which is our state law for special ed. And then it may include other service providers like a speech therapist, an occupational therapist, a physical therapist. It may include an autism team, depending on what the request for testing involves.
Does every school have a school psychologist?
We have a team of school psychs. Some of them support 2 or 3 schools. And so every school has one assigned.
Has access
And
to
some
it.
have one full-time, yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Because I had a similar question about if a parent, I mean, really is insistent,
Yeah.
will you do an evaluation or?
Most of the time, yes. Unless it's very obvious within Article 7 that a student won't qualify, and then we would point that out and what assessment data or other data we're using to make that determination. And so we always have to respond in writing within 10 days. And so we give a written notice. If we say we're not ready to evaluate, here's why. We give the assessments that we utilize to make that decision. But most of the time, if it comes to, and the parent is coming back again saying, hey, I think my child has learning difficulties, we need to evaluate. Most of the time, we would end up evaluating because we want to rule it out and just be rather safe than sorry.
Right.
It is obviously a time commitment and a staff investment to evaluate, so we want to rule out. We don't want to evaluate if it's very clear that the student isn't going to be eligible. And so sometimes there's a training component of working with the parent on what Article 7 says is eligibility for special ed.
And I know that a lot of parents have the resources to go have their child evaluated privately, and then but most of our families don't have that. I mean, I know even years and years and years ago, I had a son that needed some extra help.
Yep.
But I mean, I paid to have him evaluated privately, and then that person, then they worked with, the school.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, I don't want to create a system where, the people that can afford to get their children evaluated, versus, families that can't afford that.
Absolutely
Yeah.
not. And
Yeah.
neither do we, and neither do any of our staff.
Yeah.
And so the effort is always on appropriate eligibility. And so what does Article 7 and IDEA, which is the federal law, what does it say that it constitutes to be eligible for special ed? And that's what the evaluation is all about. So we believe very strongly in the equity that you mentioned as well.
And then I don't know if you can speak on this, it might be an HR question, but how are we doing on compliance and making sure that, I know it's a constant
Yeah.
challenge because, we have teacher shortages, and we have teacher shortages, especially in special ed, because we have schools of education that aren't graduating students that have special ed certificates. And, they ought to address that, but they don't. So I just wondered, how is it going?
So it's a really good question. I mean, it is tough when a teacher may leave mid-year or when there's a vacant position. What we do is we offer subs, and so having the contract with Parallel the last couple of years has really helped. So our fill rate is much improved for special education teacher subs. And we also, if an special ed assistant position is vacant, we will fund a sub as well for that position. And so while it's not a full-time person and it's not a certified special education teacher. It is someone that with support can provide some service to children. And so we're pleased with the progress with the parallel contract, but we still need work on the special ed talent pipeline. And so you mentioned it's a bigger issue than IPS for sure.
Well, I mean, I was just surprised that, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, someone told me that at IU Bloomington, which is a big school of education, they had 3 people graduating with special education certification at the high school level. 3 out of that entire class, because they're not, you know, I don't want to get on well, maybe I do. It's my last chance. I'm getting on my, I'm going to get on my soapbox, but the schools of education have culpability in this. And there is no reason that students shouldn't be required to have a special ed certificate. That doesn't mean they're going to teach special ed, but they're going to have special ed students in their classroom. It doesn't matter what kind of teacher they are, right? I mean, every teacher has special education students in their classroom.
Yep.
Because not all of our kids are self-contained.
Right.
And so I just think that, the schools of ed need to get on the bandwagon and start, making some changes at that level. It's very frustrating that, when you hear a story of IU Bloomington graduating 3 people in an entire class of, I don't know how many kids graduate at one time down there, but it's a lot in the school of education. And so, hopefully we just need to keep putting the pressure on them.
And just to layer onto that, I know IUPUI prepares a number of dual credentialed graduates, so special ed license and general ed, but most of them opt to teach in general ed because of the paperwork burden in special ed. And just to advocate for my special ed colleagues, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of extra pressure as well from the compliance management, and we have a couple of special ed teachers out here tonight. It's a passion and a commitment that folks make, but a lot of them choose general ed for those reasons. So we have to address that.
Yeah, and do we have the ability to pay special education teachers more, don't we? Do we?
Yeah.
Okay.
We do.
Because I think, again, I'm not going to be around, but it is something that, that needs to be addressed. I agree. Special ed teachers are saints, and, they do have a lot of additional work, and it's important work, and it's, we don't like to talk about money, but that paperwork is how the district gets funded to serve those students. And we need to be able to serve them, but we're not going to serve them if we don't get the funding, and we don't get the funding if the paperwork's not taken care of. So it's, this sort of vicious cycle. But, I appreciate your efforts. I appreciate all of our special education teachers, because I think they're our unsung heroes, and, they aren't getting paid enough, and it is a challenging job.
I will pass that along. Thank you.
Commissioner Hoops.
How are we supporting the parents at the district level with regards to, I've been having several conversations with parents about just how you support a child, for example, that's in general ed that needs, that homework support at home. And obviously the parent isn't a special ed teacher or trained or skilled. Is there anything that the district is doing now to support parents in those types of situations besides just at the school level?
We've done a number of parent trainings over the last couple of years, and so we've developed Special Ed 101 for parents, and talking more about the language of a case conference and sort of all of the intimidating acronyms and things like that. Some of what you're describing happens in the ideal case conference, and so in that IEP team meeting, there's discussion about transference of what's happening at school, strategies, or working on those goals, and then taking that work home, and what does it look like for the parent if they're able and willing to support in the student's growth. And so that is something that should happen in a case conference. It is something that our team, through our administrators and our special ed specialists, they will support parents upon request, and so those are some of the ways that plays out.
Yeah, I find that typically you definitely have to be looking for that additional support and so on. But I think it should be part of the conversation at the case conference. Like, does the child have the support at home? You know, either time-wise from the parent or the skill to be able to provide, because obviously a lot of that work can be done at home as well. But if the parent doesn't know exactly how to go about it, it just continues to have the child fall behind and coursework and try to stay ahead. Try to stay with the classroom.
I agree. Yeah.
Commissioner Gore?
I was very glad to see under the equity-based inclusive education, the increase in graduation rates and the increase in persistence of secondary education. How are we doing there? Are we finding that some of our students are able to stay in secondary, or they're able to go and get jobs, or how are we doing in that aspect?
So I don't have great data for you about special education, post-secondary persistence. The data that I included on the slides here is sort of from a national study about the benefits of inclusion and equity-based inclusion. I do know that our graduation rates have come up in special education and overall.
In special ed,
And so so we know that students having access to the same level of rigor as their non-disabled peers is more likely to allow them to attend college or post-secondary vocational training, et cetera. And we are working on some supports in our career academies for students with special needs to be able to access those career academies as well.
Okay, so right now we don't have the data. You'll begin to look at that.
I will see what we can come up with, and through the future centers, that should help with collecting that data from our alumni. Yep.
Commissioner Arnold?
I just have 3 more quick questions, I hope. Can you estimate, you probably don't have a solid figure, but can you estimate the number of parent referrals that actually become special ed students? I mean,
like in a given year, how many new
I'm
parent
just
referrals
trying
would
to
become?
figure out, are there a lot that get referred,
Hundreds,
but not that
not
many,
thousands,
like
hundreds.
half of them?
Yeah, so I know from our Programs for Young Children, which does the 3-year-old and preschool evaluations, they'll do about 500 evaluations a year. And that's the most common way that students enter special ed, is that transition from first steps at 3 years old. So add to that, I mean, it's probably around 1,000 off the top of my head.
But the percentage of, say, 1,000 parents refer and think their children deserve special ed, what is your best estimate on the percentage of your first number, your referrals that actually end up being evaluated and needing services?
Probably 60 to 80%, and I'm ballparking.
Yeah, I don't know, but I was just curious,
Yep.
are there a lot more that refer than actually make it through the system, or
There are a
parents
number.
pretty savvy about if there was a referral, there generally is an issue?
But both and. Yeah.
Okay, my second question is, if a school refers a child, so it can come either parent or it can come from the school.
Correct.
Do the parents have the right to say, no, I don't? What happens if a parent doesn't think anything's wrong with their child, or that their child needs special? I'm assuming that happens sometimes, that parents think their children are okay, but there are some issues. How does that work if the parent is non-compliant or doesn't want their child to receive the services?
That's a great question. It does happen. There are parents who don't want a label, right? And so don't want a disability label placed on child. So we can propose a 504 plan for some accommodations and supports. We can, if we really think strongly the child needs more, we can file for mediation or a due process hearing. So there's sort of proceedings with the IDOE that we can take if we want to dispute that. Many times we will continue to collect data and request again from the parent that they consent, because it will be beneficial for their child. So.
My last question is kind of piggybacking on what Commissioner Hoop said about parent involvement. I know you said you do trainings, but are there any things like a parent advisory committee or any focus groups just to get feedback from parents whose children are impacted by the services?
Yeah. There's been discussion of a district parent advisory group for special education, and that is something we could put together. I know that at a couple of schools there exist such groups, and our various teammates from special ed department have supported over the years.
Okay, because that's
Yep.
what someone asked me, is there one available? And I didn't know, so.
Please connect them with me, and we
Okay.
could get one. Mhm.
Great,
Yep.
thank you.
Yep.
So, quick question. I don't know if the best way to ask this is how many are in IEPs, or as you think about the continuum that you described, how many of our, percentage-wise, how many of our students are in an IEP or in part of that that continuum that you described?
Almost 1 in 5, so between 18 and 19%. And so if you include our non-public students that we service, it's about 5,600 students right now. Yeah.
Any further questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. The last report this evening is a human resources update. Minnie Slagle will provide an overview of some of the initiatives and strategies in her department, along with the proposal for a redesign of the personnel report. Welcome, Mindy.
Thank you. Good evening. I just wanted to come tonight and give a very brief and efficient, I promise, overview of just the things that we've been doing this year in human resources. I've come to you a number of times to talk about policies. We do a lot of other stuff too. So I just want to give you a brief overview of sort of all of the work that we've done and just draw out some key highlights of the accomplishments we've done for the past year. So just a quick overview of the goals that we've focused on for the past year. I've really been sort of laser-like focused around efficiency and operational process improvements. So you've seen a lot of that with the policy work, but we've really worked to, I would sort of highlight, automate, increase the accuracy of data. I talk a lot about data when I come up here. In the past 3 years, we've really tried to build our data system so we can start to make strategic decisions based on actual data. And then, as always, develop effective strategies around our human capital work, both developing folks and expanding our pipelines. So given that, the employee relations team has done, as you know, all of the work around our policies and administrative guideline review. I did not count the pages, but I did count the number of policies for you. So just reducing the redundancies that we find in updating all those languages. The other thing I'd like to highlight is the work that that team specifically has done around Title IX and discrimination. So we've actually gotten some national attention from the improvements that we've made around CPS reporting and Title IX work. And we are actually are hosting a national conference in the next year, which is pretty exciting for IPS. So, and the third thing I highlight is just around investigations. We've got a pretty solid employee relations team. But because we've built that capacity, we've really improved both processes with our attendance, discipline, procedures, and really reduced investigation timelines when dealing with our employees. So those are some of the things I would highlight in that area. On benefits, we have outsourced our FMLA services, which has really increased our efficiency and capacity. It's also decreased the number of cases that we've seen over the year. We're only 1 year in, but we're tracking that pretty carefully. We've also brought over workers' comp to align that with all of our leave and are looking to revamp our contracts and processes in that space as well. And we have done online enrollment paperless in the past year. So that was a huge step forward for our benefits team and pretty exciting for us as sort of a department. On the operations and staffing side, this is really where we've targeted a lot of our automation efficiency. So I don't know if any of you have seen our triplicate forms, but we have lots of triplicate forms. And we've been building electronic systems to replace those that both speak to our HRIS system. We did a large data audit as well when we rolled out Kronos payroll system with finance. You have to know who the right supervisor is in the system in order to make that other complementary system work. So that took several months to do. And then, as you know, we're rolling out and just beginning our reoptimization of that HRIS system between HR and finance. On the staffing side, we used a new staffing tool for student-based allocation. It's both budgeting and staffing that's very easy for our principals and our team to use. We displaced and then replaced and facilitated all of the interviews for almost 400 high school staff through the course of last year, through the high school reimagining of those 4 buildings. And we handled all of those interviews. So I don't know if you remember, we guaranteed all staff their first choice interview at their first choice location. So that team executed that. And most recently this fall, we've been much tighter alignment with the academic team. So by providing sort of an HR team member in their support meetings within the learning communities for the schools. So that's been very exciting alignment. As Dr. Farabee mentioned, we also did a landscape analysis with personnel reports across the state. We created a working group with some of you all helping me. Taking a look specifically at the format, what was required, what's not required of our personnel report, how we as an HR team build that every month, mostly wanting it to align it with our sort of reoptimization of Munis and those process improvements so it becomes more automatic and less manual. Looking at some rebranding, I have included with your board documents a sample of what the new version looks like. That really aligns us with what we see across the state. So we looked at all the townships and other big urban systems and came up with a new format. Did a draft, got some feedback from the working group folks, and then finalized what you see attached with your documents tonight. On the talent side, we have been lucky enough to get a large support grant for a lot of the work that we launched this year. So we conducted management training for all people supervisors, people managers in the district this fall, both in schools and in central office. We've been working on principal competency frameworks. We really work to increase both the depth of our pool, but also really focusing on the diversity of hires that principals and people managers are making. We did update all classified performance evaluations in the past year, expanded teacher leadership roles, which I've come to present to you about. And the other thing I would highlight, particularly in this, is around the work we've done around student teachers in the district. So we hire so many new young teachers to fill vacancies that we have. We've put some time, effort, and energy into really rethinking and partnering with our higher ed partners around what we need, what they're giving us, and then what that experience looks like in the district so we can turn around and hire those folks. So looking forward sort of to the next year, both completing our initial policy review, but then also ensuring that it's sort of an annual process, that we're revisiting things, not a sort of one and done, so those policies and practices remain aligned and up to date. We are sort of shifting a little bit, again, sort of thinking about all of those new hires that we're making and rethinking about sort of the deliberateness in which we approach both orientation and then onboarding of new staff, and then new teacher induction. So we don't currently do any kind of in-depth new teacher induction. And again, given our numbers and inexperience of a lot of the teachers that we have, we would like to start to focus and pour more resources into that work. The reoptimization of that HRIS system, which is called Munis, will take pretty much the next year to work on and roll out. And then we're actually launching a teacher residency pilot as well. So that will be some exciting work that we do next fall. Who's excited about that? So I'm happy to answer any questions about the work that we've done.
Commissioner Arnold?
I don't know if you know this or not, but what's the current diversity makeup of our teaching population at this point?
It's, I don't know the number offhand. It's close to, I would say, between 25 and 30%
of
teachers, of teachers of color. Is that what you asked?
Yes, but I know, well, yeah, I was just Caucasian Latino, because I know that's been a real hard niche, and we have schools that have growing Latino populations and more needs with our newcomer school in those.
Yeah.
So
I don't know the breakdown offhand. And it is self-reported in our it's basically how we track it is through the application system. So I can get the breakdown for you.
Just curious.
Yeah.
One brag on the human resource team, and Ms. Young may be hitting this point, is that it has been an area of emphasis for us for recruitment. And Mindy, correct me if I'm wrong, in this school year, when we filled our positions, 1 in 3 hires were hires of color.
Yeah, so we had a 36% diversity rate in new hires. So it's higher than total staff percentages. So we're moving in the right direction.
Commissioner Bentley, did you have a question?
Oh, I wanted to know what the teacher residency pilot is in, I don't know, 20 words or less. No, I'm just, but I mean, I'm just interested in just sort of a quick what that is.
Yeah, so we've been actually talking to higher ed partners for a few years, trying to figure out the right way to roll it out. There is a new program in Indiana launching called Relay, and they're partnering both with the district and with a number of other charter schools around the city. It's a year-long internship where they, in IPS, they will actually work in opportunity culture schools that are whose school designs are set up for taking in a resident, putting them under a master teacher, and having them work pretty deeply and intensively with students for the year.
Sounds exciting.
Commissioner Hoops.
You mentioned you contracted with a new service with FMLA providing that service, and there's been a reduction in FMLA leaves. Talk a little bit about what you're thinking about that impact and what.
Yeah, so I think that outsourcing has helped us do a much better job of tracking. They're also staffed with a nursing consult, which we did not have the expertise to do. And so I think that kind of additional layer of screening has been very helpful. So I would say those are the two biggest benefits for us, is just the tracking mechanism that they have and the ability that they have then to turn around and provide us with supports when we've asked, and then that nursing expertise.
Remind me how big your team is. You had a very busy year with lots of great things accomplished.
There are 27 in HR, yeah.
Commissioner Gore.
I would like to know what percentage of our teaching staff are male. How do we do in?
Yeah, I don't know that percentage offhand either. I'm sorry, I can circle back to you. Predominantly women.
I know, but I was wondering, do we have a hard time in recruiting male teachers, or are they there? Or?
Yeah, I would say they are there. There are not very many of them. And I would say where we put our efforts to are in trying to find male teachers of color.
Mindy, one question, just to go back, because I remember when we talked about this and the task force that worked on this, on the old personnel report versus where we're going with that, how many, there was some incredible number of hours that went into preparing the old report for the board. Do you remember that?
I'm 15. So that's all. What you see typically on the board report is it's a Word document, and it's a table in a Word document, so it's all hand typed. And while we're not there yet, so the format may change slightly, but I wanted to produce at least a version for you. We're trying to automate it so that it becomes a form, so it's not hand typed.
Great.
Yay, progress.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Commissioners, we're now ready to move to action items. The first item for action is an unfinished business. This is the item that was previously discussed in our last month meeting, which includes a number of consolidations of human resource policies in alignment with current law that governs Indianapolis Public Schools. Ms. Stego can provide any updates or any answers or summary to what's being presented as relates to the revised policies before you for approval.
Remind everybody, we discussed this in detail on Tuesday. Do I have a motion to approve resolution number 7810, authorizing the adoption and repeal of selected human resource policies as presented?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
Next section, Commissioners, new business. There are 8 items for action. The first is the renewal of the Right Fit program. The memorandum of understanding is in your material. Request that Commissioners approve the MOU as presented.
So moved.
Do I, a little quick? Do I have a motion?
Am I not?
I heard,
So
I have
moved.
heard a motion a second.
Second.
Oh, I always forget.
Any discussion?
It's my last time, I don't care.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion
Break all
carries.
the rules.
The next item is the approval of the bond refinance for the 2009 A Series. Request that Commissioners approve the refunding as presented associated with resolution number 7811.
Do I have a motion to approve resolution number 7811, approving the refunding series of Series 2009A bonds as presented?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
The next item for action is the approval of the 2019-20 school year student-based allocations. Request that Commissioners approve resolution number 7812 associated with Board Policy 6222 to ensure that administration is providing parameters based on projected funding amounts and weights for a formula to fund priorities for the district.
Do I have a motion to approve resolution number 7812, authorizing the review and approval of student-based allocations for the 2019-2020 school year as presented?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
The next item is item 8.04. It is request for authorization to submit an opt-out waiver to the Indiana State Board of Accounts for additional auditing to be completed by an external auditor. Request that Commissioners approve resolution number 7813 as presented.
Do I have a motion to approve resolution number 7813, authorizing the submission of a waiver to request the State Board of Accounts for completion of an external third-party audit as presented?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
The next item, Commissioners, is the approval of the collective bargaining agreement between the Board of School Commissioners of the City of Indianapolis and the Indianapolis Education Association for the 2018-19 school year. Oh, sorry, skip one.
805.
Guys had moving so fast. Sorry, before 8.06, I'm excited about 8.06. It's 8.05, which is the Teach for America contract renewal. In your materials, there is the professional services agreement for school year 2019-20. Request that Commissioners approve this agreement as presented.
Do I have a motion to approve the professional services agreement with Teach for America as presented?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
Now, the item I'm really excited about, 8.06, is request for approval of the collective bargaining agreement between the Board of School Commissioners of the City of Indianapolis and the Indianapolis Education Association for the 2018-19 school year. It's important to note that this collective bargaining agreement is for 1 year for the 2018-19 school year. Any compensation associated with this agreement would be retroactive. Resolution number 5265 is presented for approval. Also want to recognize the leadership of the Indianapolis Education Association that is present this evening. Would ask that leadership please stand and be recognized. Thank you for your partnership.
Do I have a motion to approve resolution number 5265, authorizing the execution of the collective bargaining agreement with the Indianapolis Education Association for school year 2018-19 as presented?
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Well, I want to say congratulations to Dr. Farabee and the team, and quite frankly, the board and everybody. We heard from people who spoke this morning. or this evening, whatever time it is, about the work that went into this, both with regards to paying teachers, even though it is the money that will be going into this portion of the teacher pay increase will be coming from our reserves. The ability to do that in the future was contingent upon the passage of our referendum, specifically on operations. And thank you to Dr. Farabee for steering this through in a compressed time frame. Thank you to the team. Thank you to our representatives of the teachers union. And thank you to the board for all the work I think everybody put in with regards to both referenda.
Can I?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I know.
Does it matter if I said no?
Well, I would ignore
Right.
you. I was just counting on my fingers, but I believe it was 3 years ago this time of year that we voted on the first raise for teachers in like, I don't know, 10 years or something. And I think since then, is this the third contract that's been negotiated since then that has given teachers raises? And, you know, it's never enough. We know it's not enough, but I'm exiting stage right feeling really good that even with declining revenues, we've been able to give our teachers the raises that they need and deserve. I wish it could be more. I wish we could take back the 10 years that teachers didn't get raises, which was a really awful public policy decision. But, you know, I think we were always committed since the beginning that we needed to figure out a way to get teachers raises, and we've spent, as Commissioner O'Connor said, we've spent our reserves and our cash balances to get that done. We can't do what we're doing in IPS without good teachers, and we need to be able to reward them. So thanks to everyone involved. I know it's always at least from the outside looking in, it looks like it all goes really well. And so that's the way I'm going to believe that it all happens, that it's just, you know, everybody sings Kumbaya and gets the job done. And so, but I appreciate the administration, the leadership from the IEA. You know, good job.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. I will take over from here. Item 8.07 relates to the approval of the superintendent performance compensation for the 2017-18 school year. I'll remind everybody this is an annual payment required under the superintendent's employment agreement as part of the board's annual performance evaluation, which is completed in September or October of each year. The board has approved this payment in November or December for each of the past 5 years. This is not a bonus, nor is it a severance package, and it relates back to the 2017-18 school year ending in June of 2018. Do I have a motion to approve resolution number 5266, approving superintendent performance compensation for the 2017-18 school year as presented?
So moved.
It has been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Item 8.08 includes an interim superintendent contract for Alicia Johnson, who has been appointed by this board to serve as an interim superintendent effective January 4th, 2019. Do I have a motion to approve resolution number 5267, authorizing the approval of the interim superintendent contract as presented?
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded, and we have noted the historic nature of this effort, but I think we should do that again, that Alicia Johnson will be the first African-American woman to lead this school system, and I think I, as a board member, am proud of this action, but I'm particularly proud of Alicia Johnson, and I said actually this afternoon that it isn't, I'm not just proud of Alicia, but I think it is a testimony to the work that Dr. Farabee has done with this school system to create a diverse leadership team in which an African-American woman was the natural choice for all of us to fill in the interim role. And so congratulations to all of you. And any further discussion?
I just want to state that, you know, the fact that Alicia is an African-American woman really is a twofer, because what she really is an amazing leader who is smart and talented and, you know, and is appointed for that very reason. You know, the fact that she's also the first African-American woman is, like I said, an awesome twofer. So I just want to make that clear. Again, I feel like I'm exiting and IPS is in good hands. I couldn't be more happy with leaving Alicia in charge of the team.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. We're on the closing comment section. I'm sure nobody has any closing comments this evening. Commissioner Sullivan, would you like to execute on your fourth opportunity, or
If others would like to go first,
okay,
that would be.
Commissioner Bentley?
Did you want me to go? I mean, I'm long-winded. Actually, I'm going to try to keep it short.
I'm short.
There we go.
Okay.
Commissioner Gore?
We'll work our way up.
I'm a Democrat, so I always look left first, so I apologize.
Okay. I'd just like to start kind of around the table, kind of like Dr. Farabee did earlier. However, I'd like to thank Dr. Farabee for his time here. I have appreciated the opportunity to work with him. I know that there have been some changes made in the IPS district that sometimes we don't see eye to eye with, but I do understand that the changes have been good in a lot of our schools and testified here by our parents. So we can appreciate that. And I wish you well.
Thank you.
In Washington. And don't forget about us here.
I will not.
Also, with Marianne, we wish you well. Gonna miss you here on the board, but I have appreciated the time that we had to work together. Kelly, she and I have been on the board. This is the second time. And she exited once before and left me on the board by myself with her. So I'm hoping that this time maybe you will come back again. But I've enjoyed my time with you and on the board as well. And the things that you pointed out are always very good for us as a board. So we can appreciate that. And Doreen has been the best partner over here to sit with. She's always knowledgeable about the things and learns a lot and is appreciative of your time here on the board. So thank you.
Commissioner Hoops?
I'm also going to be brief. I think you guys are going to the rest of the evening, right? I was appointed by this board 2 years ago to serve out the remainder of the term of former board member Lanier Eccles. My time on the board has been a rewarding experience. I'm proud of what we accomplished as a board. It's truly been an honor and a privilege to be a part of a board that has been committed to executing the vision that was defined in the IPS 2015 strategic plan. I know I'm speaking to the choir when I say IPS has made great progress, but there's more work to do to ensure that all students receive a high-quality education. My term ends this month. However, I will continue to stay engaged in the school district as an IPS parent and community member. Providing IPS students the best educational foundation is urgent and important work to me, so I know that I'll find other ways to serve. A few words about my board colleagues. First, let me start by telling you about my daughter's classroom. If you walk into her classroom, you'll find on the wall the classroom's essential agreements. All the students at the start of the school come up with how they want to conduct themselves in the classroom. They brainstorm and they come up with a short list of agreements, hence the term essential agreements. After a couple of executive sessions, I realized that we had some unwritten and unspoken essential agreements as a board. I noticed that we actively listened, that we were outspoken, that we were respectful, thoughtful, and engaged and committed to make decisions that put students first. I want to thank my fellow board members for bringing their best to this work. For those that will continue to serve, I will look forward to seeing how you will continue to improve the district. I know you have some tough decisions ahead of you. And Commissioner Sullivan and Commissioner my good fortune to serve at the same time with you. You are two amazing women. I'm excited to see how you will continue to serve our community. You are both cut from the same cloth, humble servant leaders that care deeply about IPS students and Indianapolis. Your list of accomplishments to our district and our community are long, and your impact is widespread. And I know that neither one of you is done, so we're lucky as a district and a city. So thank you. Now on to IPS Central Team. Each person brings a unique set of professional expertise to the district, but what they all have in common is a relentless commitment to continually improve in their respective areas. Dr. Kirby has assembled an A-team that has accomplished so much with less staff. The level of output from the Central Team these last 2 years is really awe-inspiring. Thank you for your tireless efforts and all that you do to improve student outcomes with limited resources. And Dr. Farabee, I shared with you personally how saddened by the news that you were leaving the district I was. You have had a tremendous impact on the district and have made great strides in fulfilling the 2015 strategic plan to enhance IPS's vision, to set a new direction and a pathway towards excellence for our students and families. Thank you. I'm excited that you're passing on the baton to Elisa Johnson as interim superintendent to continue the path toward excellence. I wish you the best of luck in Washington, D.C. Your dedication to improve educational outcomes for students will continue in Washington, D.C. without a doubt. I also want to thank the many IPS teachers, staff, family, students, and community members I've had the pleasure of getting to know while visiting schools, attending school performances, and many, 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 many community meetings over various subjects over the last 2 years in my capacity as a commissioner. Your willingness to share with me your experiences and give me candid feedback helped inform my decisions on the board. Finally, although we have challenging times ahead in the district, I remain hopeful. The recent passage of the referenda is but one example of the community's willingness to invest in IPS. IPS must continue to stay connected with all stakeholders with various means of communications, as well as creating opportunities for authentic community engagement and feedback. Working together with IPS families, teachers, school leaders, and the community at large, IPS can be a model urban school district.
I'm going to go and then
Okay.
just sort of going down in order. I'm going to talk about each of our departing commissioners and our departing superintendent. And I'm going to start with Commissioner Hoops. I didn't know Commissioner Hoops prior to our board interview with her for the board vacancy. Since that time, I've come to know her as a committed, tireless public servant. She brought her substantial professional skills to the job of commissioner and has been a great asset to all of us board members. She is the ultimate professional, but a staunch advocate for all of our children, but particularly children with special needs. I'll always appreciate her insight. There are so many things that I'm proud about during her tenure with us on the board, excuse me, but none better illustrates what we do as a board and who we serve than during the meeting in which we adopted the resolution indicating that we, as IPS, we're going to do our utmost to protect our families and children of immigrant backgrounds. And for those families who were here with us, and I remember many were here with us, to hear our commitment to them from a commissioner who spoke their language is something that I will never forget. It was deeply moving. And maybe the greatest example of strength of us as a community. Doreen, I'll miss you on this board, but I'll make sure to continue our friendship off the board. Kelly Bentley. Kelly. I'm not sure how to adequately represent how much I have learned from Commissioner Bentley during my 2.5 years on this board. We've served together as commissioners and as members of the Finance Committee, again, which meets quarterly, and I'd love for all of you to come.
It is the best.
Her history and knowledge of this school system and its board is unrivaled. She is literally encyclopedic in her ability to give history and context as to why certain things have happened and how they ended up the way that they did, something I'll deeply appreciate. Her knowledge is incredible, but that's not what will stick with me about my time with Kelly on this board. What will stick with me is her passion for learning, her passion for children, and I mean all children, her commitment to making sure that all our children and families receive the benefit of a first-class education, regardless of any barriers that might present themselves. I have loved laughing with Kelly, and I've loved arguing with Kelly. and I'll expect that I get to do both well into the future. Mary Ann Sullivan. Commissioner Sullivan and I have worked together for many, many years, several hair colors, for both of us, by the way, and well before either of us joined this esteemed body. One truth of Mary Ann's work her entire career has been to make anything she is attending to work better and work for everyone. Her commitment to education has been a hallmark at every stop in her long career as a public servant. It was her passion for IPS that caused me to pursue the seat in District 1. And I've been awed by her ability to cut through the intricacies of so much of what we do and help me understand it at my own level of comprehension. Her driving desire to make education work in our community is admirable. Her ability to combine that desire with the many constituents we serve is phenomenal. And the impact she has had in our community, in our school system, and in our schools will be felt for years to come. I'm not sure I'd be sitting here in this seat today if it weren't for my relationship with Commissioner Sullivan. But I'm sure a better person for having the opportunity for working with her. Thank you. Dr. Farabee. A couple of years ago, I had my oldest daughter in tow for a meeting here, and she got to meet Dr. Farabee for the first time. And after meeting Dr. Farabee, I asked her what she thought of him, and she said, he was really cool. And I said, you mean really cool like me? And she replied, no, I mean like really cool. So you got that going for you. But in all seriousness, I've so much appreciated working with Dr. Farabee over the past 2.5 years, and particularly in the past year as president. The role of president is really more of a facilitator of information and an organizer of these meetings. This year, coming on the heels of the high school work we completed and right into planning for 2 referenda, has caused me to spend a lot of time with Dr. Farabee, perhaps an inordinate amount of time. But I've enjoyed it and been blessed to have that time. Dr. Farabee, you are first and foremost the ultimate professional. We will highlight, by the way, so many of your accomplishments tonight. And you should be proud, as we are proud of you and this school system. But you should be particularly proud that you delivered higher pay for teachers 4 out of the 5 years you have been with us. You should be proud that you have significantly moved our high school graduation rates at a time when most other school systems around the state were stagnant. You should be proud that you created a situation where IPS received a vote of confidence from the taxpayers by saying we'll pay more to make sure all our children have access to a first-class education. I deeply appreciate that as we worked through so many issues this year, you always made sure we kept our focus on the children. You've truly made Indianapolis a better place, and my daughter was right. You're really cool. Commissioner Arnold.
It's been my honor to serve with 3 amazing women. They've all served with great wisdom and integrity. Each one of them has championed different issues during their service on the board. I appreciate Commissioner Sullivan's work on the creation and the constant integration of the board's core principles into all of the work that we do. Her support of the portfolio model has helped create educational opportunities for many of our most vulnerable children. I've served the longest with Commissioner Bentley. Her strong advocacy to replicate our most successful magnet options and her leadership on the separation of the junior-senior high school populations was important work. We did not get, although we worked to try to get the high school time changed. We're not there yet, but I will carry that torch on. I've known Commissioner Hoops for the shortest amount of time, but I've been impressed with her efforts to support our special needs students, ensuring that services and facilities, including playgrounds, were appropriate. Her continued work to improve communication and transparency to all of our constituents was important. So for my last 2 years on this governing body, my hope is that I can channel the wisdom of Commissioner Mary Ann Sullivan, the bravery of Commissioner Kelly Bentley, and the compassion of Commissioner Doreen Hoops as I continue for the next 2 years to serve the children in Indianapolis Public Schools. Dr. Farabee. doesn't seem like it's been 5 years. I will tell you that when we were looking for superintendents, I thought Dr. Farabee wasn't, I thought he was too traditional. That wasn't true. So it's been a long journey. We've had some challenges. We haven't always agreed, but we've become great friends. And although we've had challenges, there's many, many more positive accomplishments that we've made that include but are not limited to passing the referendum, school autonomy, reducing central office expenses, student-based allocations, improved relationships with not only our state legislature but the Department of Ed, improved financial accountability and transparency, the push for higher teacher salaries, supporting the portfolio model, selling off surplus facilities, redesigning the high school experience to ensure that students will be employed, go on to higher ed, or enlist, providing meals for children when schools are closed, including my favorite, the IPS food truck. So I wish you well. I hope that this isn't the last time that we see each other, and good luck.
Thank you. You forgot the dog. You're responsible for my dog.
I made him get a dog. I keep trying to get him to get another one.
Commissioner Bentley,
Well, I guess I get the last word.
second to last.
Well, not last. Anyway, it was kind of hard for me to put together my thoughts because I was just trying to figure out, where to begin. IPS has been a huge part of my entire adult life. And even before that, I was a student in the district, and then later became a parent in the district, was a PTA treasurer, was a fundraising chair, was one of the founding members of the IPS Community Legislative Committee back in the 90s. We spent hours and hours and hours at the State House advocating for IPS and the students of IPS. And I spent a lot of time, teaching myself how budgeting works in districts, how the funding formula works in the district, and it was very rewarding, and it continues to be rewarding. It's been a very it's just been a wonderful journey, and I'm proud of my service in the district. I've served with some really dedicated public servants over the years. Most of them are actually sitting at this table. This group, probably of all the boards I've served on, has a commitment to doing what's right for kids, putting kid interests ahead of adult interests and ahead of self-interest. And that's just been a real refreshing for me, because that hasn't always been the case. I'll leave it at that. There were some things, proud things to be proud of in those early years too. I was part of the board that that created and implemented and went to the taxpayers for support for the 10 years or $850 million capital improvements program that touched every school in this district, and and actually provided some equity with surrounding school districts that were taking air conditioning for granted, where more than half of our schools were not. And so that was just something that I personally am very, very proud of. I was proud of the early work with redesigning high schools and creating small schools. And interestingly, parallel to that, Commissioner Sullivan was involved in that work too, through the University of Indianapolis. We had a focus on literacy. And I'm not saying these things as if we're not continuing that focus, but there was a huge focus on literacy district-wide, rebuilding music and art programs, and the continued focus on eliminating the achievement gap. But in 2010, I walked away. I thought I was done. I didn't feel good about leaving, but I felt like it was time. Then jump forward to 2013 when this guy from North Carolina was appointed superintendent in Indianapolis Public Schools. And all of a sudden there was this renewed excitement and energy about the possibility of making some lasting change in the district that I love. And in 2014, I decided I wanted to be part of that change. And boy, is this board and Dr. Farabee accomplished a lot in that short period of time. We adopted the IPS board core commitments and beliefs, and under Dr. Farabee's leadership, we created the IPS strategic plan with input from parents, teachers, and other community stakeholders. These two documents, and I will give a lot of credit to Commissioner Sullivan as well for her work on those core commitments. You know, it's a lot of work to put in writing how you really feel about what this work means to us individually as board members as well as collectively as a board. It was a lot of work. And those two documents became the foundation of all the decisions that this district has been making over the course of the last few years. And decisions, I believe, have been in the best interest of students, of our community, and of our city. And I credit Dr. Farabee for his vision as well as the people at this table. We've all had a very strong vision about what we wanted to see happen in Indianapolis Public Schools. We've already sort of patted ourselves on the back about being able to give teachers increases in their salary. It's no small feat when the district is faced with declining revenue, but we did it, and we did it because it was important to do it. We also absorbed increases in health insurance benefits. Again, not something that we had the revenue to do, but we knew that it was important to do it. And this time, you know, we've given another increase. We also offered a lower cost option on health insurance to help alleviate some of the pain from the continued increases in health insurance premiums. We had an update today, and we voted on the student-based allocation for next year. You know, again, something that I am incredibly proud of, and I know others on the board are. For years, no one knew how much schools cost to run. You had no idea what the budgets were for each school. And, you know, as with any organization, the squeaky wheels get the, whatever the saying is. They get the oil? Okay, thank you. And so inequities were created. And I think that student-based allocation is a way of addressing some of those inequities, making sure that we are very transparent about how much money we're spending in schools. And then at some point, this is my dream of dreams, is that we will connect that spending with decisions that schools are making so like schools can look at each other and say, wow, they're performing a lot better than I am. I wonder what they're doing that I'm not doing. And they'll be able to look at how they're spending their funds within their school to decide whether they might need to think about different ways to spend their money as well. We become more transparent and strategic with our finances. We've saved taxpayers millions of dollars by refinancing our bond debt, as we've done again tonight, and by increasing our earnings on investments. We have been a leader in the implementation of GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles for public entities. I don't know where that is right now, but we have been a leading on that. We created a finance committee made up of board members and community volunteers with law and finance expertise. And we created an audit committee to work with our external auditors. We've implemented the opportunity culture in IPS, giving our best teachers leadership opportunities with extra pay, but without taking them out of the classroom where they're needed. And we continue to support the administration's efforts in recruiting and retaining excellent teachers and school leaders. We are part of the creation of the Common Enrollment System, Enroll Indy, that makes finding a great public school easier for families and makes access to great public schools more equitable. We've beat the drum of decentralization of decision making, believing that school leaders and teachers are the people who should be making decisions about educating the students in their schools, not the central office bureaucracy. Not that I'm being critical, but I'm just saying that I think those decisions are better made at the school level. This is a drum I've been beating since 1998, that I firmly believe that that is the best place for decision making to occur. We've had to make the tough decision to close high schools, because when you're elected officials, sometimes you have to make painful, unpopular decisions in order to do what's right. We believe that scarce resources should be used to support the students we have, rather than buildings that we don't need. We expanded our choice options in IPS, creating a 4th Center for Inquiry and a 2nd Butler Lab School. I firmly believe that our choice options have the best chance of providing schools that are racially and socioeconomically balanced. With so many of our schools in IPS, are isolated racially and socioeconomically, and we have to do whatever we can to ensure that we have some schools that are racially and socioeconomically balanced. It's a benefit to all children when they are able to attend a school that is diverse. We've embraced innovation schools as a tool to turn around schools that have been failing for years. And believe me when I say this, years. I started out in 1998, and we were having the same conversations over and over and over again about what to do with persistently failing schools. And at some point, you got to stop talking and start doing, and that's what we did. These schools had significant interventions, not just from the district, but from the state. I think that we've been criticized that we let schools fail. We're not letting any schools fail. I know that Dr. Farabee and his team work tirelessly working with schools that are struggling academically and trying to give schools additional supports to help them succeed. But sometimes, after 5 and 6 years of failure, you have to do something as a district. We have that obligation to our communities and to our children and to our parents. We've entered into innovation agreements with charter schools located in IPS because we believe that all public schools in IPS, regardless of type, should be a part of the IPS portfolio of schools and accountable to this elected IPS school board. I feel passionate and strongly about that. We continue to support other initiatives to improve struggling schools, and I know I'm gonna miss some, but the one that comes to mind is the transformation zone work that's been going on for many years, and I think is always operating under the radar. We don't hold that up as an intervention that that has been supported. What are you smiling at? Are you looking at somebody back there?
Yeah. Who leads the transformation zone?
Stand up and let's applaud you. But I think my point is there are so many incredible things that go on in this district that, and as a board, we just barely know. We barely scratch the surface of some of these wonderful things that are happening in our district. Last month, one of the biggest things that Dr. Farabee and this board need to be proud of is, the voters in IPS gave us a huge thumbs up by supporting 2 referenda by significant margins. That means people believe and trust what we're doing for kids. This was in spite of opposition from some disgruntled former employees, people who don't support increased salaries for teachers and other staff, and people who oppose the district's direction and the focus on students' interests rather than adult interests. We have done all of these things and so much more. But one of the things that I'm most proud of, and he got kudos earlier, but I'm most proud of that guy right there. I look back at one decision. The board's role is to hire a superintendent. The board's role is also to hire a board administrator. And Zach Mulholland came on. He elevated the board office to the really important work of the IPS Board of School Commissioners, which is reviewing and implementing public policies that help guide the district. He's a lawyer. He's a public policy expert. He's an IPS alum, married to an IPS alum, an IPS taxpayer, and an IPS parent. So but he is one of the hires that I am most proud of, and I really do appreciate, all you've done. As Marianne said, you are a man of integrity, and it's catching. Not that any of us aren't, we all are, I think, people of integrity, but I think Zach exemplifies that. I've worked with a lot of administrators in this district over the years. Dr. Farabee, I like being your critical friend. I like being everyone's critical friend. I should get a t-shirt. But you are the first superintendent I've worked with that has had a big a heart as you do. And I think that sometimes people don't realize that every decision that you've made, I may not agree with them all the time, but I have always believed that you are making that decision in the best interest of students and the best interest of our staff, and so I really appreciate that, because you're an honest guy, you're a stand-up guy, and you really care, and so I've always appreciated that. There's a lot of administrators out here. I've worked with some that are gone, but some of the best administrators, I think, in this district are sitting at that table right there, and we're sprinkled around out there as well. And so, I appreciate all your hard work. There have been significant changes in this district, and when you're steering a ship as big as IPS, sometimes that can be difficult to navigate. But I have never seen a group of people work together as a team and be so functional as a team as this group here. I used to always joke prior to coming back on the board that, it was just one big dysfunctional family in IPS. But this team is actually very functional, and that has been wonderful to watch. I'm going to, give kudos to Weston. I think it was we were figuring this out the other night. We served on the strategic planning committee for finance and operations. Is that what it was? And I met Weston through that group, and then Weston was hired by the district. And again, it's probably one of the best hires that the district has done. He has gone from, taken a business office that was compliance focused and made it strategic focused. And he's brought in some pretty amazing talent that have worked hard behind the scenes. I know, we always joke that we want people to come to our finance committee meetings. It's an open door. I know that it's not exciting stuff, but it is when you think about what it means to our kids. You know, when you refinance debt and it's saving the taxpayers, you know, millions of dollars, you know, that's a benefit. When you're looking at efficiencies and, you know, making sure that all the processes are working the way they're supposed to be working, that ultimately benefits kids. And so I appreciate, you know, all of your work, and it's been a joy. I enjoy going to the finance committee meetings because I always feel like there's really good work going on there. And so, you know, I think I lost my place. That's a really dangerous thing. I think I'm done. I mean, I just want to say that, you know, there's a lot of things I worry about, and I'm not going to go into that because I don't want to end on a negative, but there are things we need to be thinking about and I worry about, and I'll share all that stuff with you before I sign off for the final, you know, before December 31st. You know, I'd like to end my comments actually with a message to the newly elected IPS board members. You know, your job is a challenging one, but it's an incredibly important one. First of all, it's important to know that you don't know what you don't know. And you have a lot of really good people sitting in this room that can help you learn what you don't know. There's no silver bullet for the challenges facing IPS and how to fix them. But again, you've got really good people with some really good ideas and who love children and who want to do what's right for them. It's important to know who your constituents are and understand that you represent all of them, even when you don't agree with them. Parents are an important constituency group, and they certainly have a vested interest in the quality of the schools their children attend, but they aren't the only constituency group. There are future parents who have a vested interest in the quality of the schools. There are taxpayers, both individuals and businesses, that want great schools, but also worry about high taxes. There are neighborhood and community groups that have a vested interest in education and school quality because it can and does impact the quality of life in a community and the value of property in a community. And again, nobody likes to talk about money, but that funding formula is based in part to the value of the property in our school district. And to the extent that we can benefit the district as a whole by increasing property values, it benefits our students. It's important to understand that you know, there are principals, administrators, teachers unions, support staff, and their unions, all who want competitive salaries and good working conditions. But you know, all of these constituency groups sometimes have conflicting interests, and it's your job to balance those interests and make decisions in the best interests of this district. I think it's important to understand that public education is a public good, and making sure we have an educated citizenry is job number one. It's important to understand that the board's role is not to manage the day-to-day operations of the district, but to hire a superintendent and to hold that superintendent accountable. And most important, I think, it's important to remember that a school board is a team effort. I think we've been a good team. We don't always agree. We have knockdown, drag-out fights occasionally. We yell at each other on the telephone. But it's important to put the interests of the district ahead of those disagreements, ahead of self-interest, and ahead of scoring political points. Many, many people are watching and counting on you, this group, as well as the incoming board members, to do the right thing. Dr. Farabee, I have enjoyed working for you, or working with you. I think I've already talked about, you know, your big heart and what you focus on, which is the students. and I wish you all the luck in the world in Washington, D.C. I want to again give kudos to Alicia Johnson. I have so much admiration for you and the work that you and your team have done and continue to do for IPS, and I'm confident that the district's in good hands. I'm going to end with a quote from Doris Young's obituary. This is from the Ode to a Grecian Urn by John Keats, part of the course content from Doris Young's British Authors class, BRHS 1977, and I was in that class. Beauty is truth, truth beauty. That is all. You know on earth and all you need to know. That is all.
Well, as I mentioned in my comments at Tuesday evening's meeting, the sheer volume of changes implemented under the leadership of Dr. Farabee and the boards that he has worked with is stunning. And we truly have rebuilt the structure of our state's largest system of schools. This is how the new system is designed. It is focused on student success, strives to be more equitable, is more personalized through choice, has flipped the relationship between central services and schools from command and control to support and assist, strategically acquires and retains talent, modernizes antiquated systems, is transparent, deploys resources in the most efficient and effective way, and seeks new levels of partnership and collaboration across our community. I am proud to have played a role in this work, but I am very aware that this newly built structure is still young, vulnerable, and needs time to become an institution and not merely a series of well-intentioned improvement efforts. I am confident that we are creating the right organization to realize our vision, that every student will have the opportunity to succeed and the power to create their own future. But it will take time to see the results. As I leave my dear colleagues on this latest version of the IPS Board of School Commissioners, I urge those of you who will continue to serve to protect and nurture this new model of public education, a model that has the potential to transform lives, continuously improve, and is built for this generation and not the last. And for God's sake, don't look back, because there is only one direction, and it is forward. And with your permission, President O'Connor, I would like to make a quick addition to the agenda from the floor.
Please do.
You know the procedure to do that. I believe we have a special resolution. And I think Commissioner Gord.
Resolution of the Board of School Commissioners for the City of Indianapolis, December the 20th, in recognition of the accomplished leadership and distinguished service of Dr. Louis D. Farabee as Superintendent of Indianapolis Public Schools. Whereas, after an outstanding career as a teacher, principal, and regional superintendent in North Carolina, the Board of School Commissioners passed resolution number 5240 on August 9th, 2013, appointing Dr. Louis D. Farabee as the 32nd Superintendent of Indianapolis Public Schools. And
whereas Dr. Farabee has provided transformational leadership during his 5 years as superintendent of Indianapolis Public Schools, while demonstrating a commitment to putting the needs of students first, ensuring the equitable allocation of resources, supporting rigorous academic instruction, enhancing student opportunities and achievement, promoting transparent and efficient fiscal stewardship, and being a steadfast advocate for fair and adequate funding for public education and employee compensation. And whereas during his tenure as superintendent of Indianapolis Public Schools, Dr. Farabee has worked closely with the Board of School Commissioners to lead the district towards a brighter academic, operational, and financial future through the design and implementation of bold and innovative strategies, including
In governance, adopted core commitments and beliefs to guide the administration's strategic planning process, amended the board's meeting and agenda structure in alignment with best practices to improve transparency, efficiency, depth of discussion, and public comment, affirmed support for immigrant students and families, and reaffirmed the district's commitment to standing with and supporting undocumented students and families.
In finance, established a policy and annual process to implement student-based budgeting practices to promote equity by allocating financial resources based on student need, improve transparency by publishing school-level budgets annually, create flexibility for school leaders to control resources and make school-level decisions. He chartered the Finance Committee of board members, volunteer finance professionals, and community stakeholders to provide oversight and recommendations regarding district financial management. Established an audit committee to select and oversee the execution of annual audits, and became the first school corporation in Indiana to utilize an independent third-party auditor. Executed refunding of numerous bond issuances to save taxpayers over $20 million in interest expenditures. Authorized and passed operating and capital referenda to secure over $270 million in additional local taxpayer support of Indianapolis public schools.
In academics, proactively intervened in chronically struggling schools and avoided state intervention. Authorized a plan to provide principals with increased autonomy in making decisions at the school level. Established new academic models to serve students with unique needs, including the Simon Youth Academy at Circle Center Mall to serve at-risk students, the Newcomers Program to serve recently arrived immigrant students and families, Thrival Academy to provide a life-changing study abroad program for high school students, reconfigured grade levels at numerous schools to increase the number of K-8 campuses, expanded high-performing, high-demand choice programs, including Center for Inquiry, K-8 Visual and Performing Arts, Butler Lab Regio program, designed and implemented strategies to enhance and expand equitable to choice programs through adjustments to the choice enrollment process and school boundaries, created an all-choice high school model with a significant expansion of career and technical education programs and establishment of future centers to support post-secondary planning and persistence for students.
In operations, pursued a comprehensive real estate strategy that reduced the district's operational footprint by over 1 million square feet and earned over $20 million in proceeds to support increases in teacher compensation. Modified transportation tiers and invested in energy-efficient buses to reduce transportation operating costs. Completed renovations to IPS high schools to create engaging, modern learning environments for the expansion of college and career-focused courses.
In human capital, negotiated collective bargaining agreements with certified and classified staff, which provided bonus compensations for staff alongside the 2014-15 agreements, raised teacher salaries for the first time in over 8 years, increased starting teacher pay, provided additional compensation for teacher leadership, maintained cost neutrality of health insurance premium increases, and improved classified staff compensation in 2015-16 and 2016-17 agreements. Raised teacher salaries, further increased the compensation for teacher leadership roles, and improved compensation for classified staff in the 2017-18 agreements. Raised teacher salaries, increased starting teacher pay, and extended the maximum teacher salary scale in the 2018-19 agreement.
Therefore, be it resolved by the Board of School Commissioners that Dr. Louis D. Farabee be recognized for his accomplished leadership and distinguished service as Superintendent of Indianapolis Public Schools, and that with gratitude for his service to the students and families of Indianapolis, the Board of School Commissioners wishes him well in his future service as Chancellor of DC Public Schools. The foregoing resolution was passed by the Board of School Commissioners of the City of Indianapolis this 20th day of December 2018. The Board of School Commissioners of the City of Indianapolis.
I would accept a motion to, a move to accept? Sorry.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The floor is yours, as is the resolution.
I don't have much to say. That's why I went first. Hearing the date, August 9th. Thank you. Thank you.
I will only close on what I think, on behalf of the board, we could say in very close ways. You're a good man, Dr. Fairby. Thank you for your service. Our next regular meeting will be our organizational meeting on Monday, January 7th, beginning at 6 p.m. in this room. Having completed all items on the agenda, this meeting stands adjourned.
Merry Christmas to all.
And to all, a good night.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for the whole board.